Okay, sometimes when you do something, you just gotta throw it away no matter what you think about it. Well, this week I did a video on the NBA and China and Hong Kong and the tweet that happened from the general manager of the Houston Rockets. I thought it was a horrible video. It wasn't really good. It went to too much topic. It was broad. It was going way back to the Portuguese and Spanish, Hong Kong, China, all the way up to World War II, to the Korean War, 1997. You get the picture. I got rid of it. I said, you know what? This story is going to die off. No one's going to care. Boy, was I wrong. So this Jason Whitlock interview is what the main topic of this video is. We're going to go through the entire thing. I'm going to talk over it, but I got to give you some background first. And we're going to do that. And I'm looking forward to this video. So yeah. So if you want to know anything about this NBA thing and what the real deal is with the NBA and what's going on with them and why they're really in trouble and in hot water with China by something that they made themselves, this mess they made themselves, then stick around and we're going to start right now. Hi, my name is Kyle. Welcome to my channel where we take culture, TV, and movies and we filter your rights. If this is your first time here, please consider hitting that like and subscribe button and that bell icon so that you do not miss any future content. Now, like I said before, I am really excited about this particular story. I'm going to jump right into it, but I got to give you some background first. In the initial video, I kind of covered everything. It was just too broad. This is a screenshot from that video, and this is kind of where it all started. Okay, so you have the general manager of the Houston Rockets. He's a great GM, one of the best in the league, Daryl Morey. He tweeted this: "Fight for freedom, stand with Hong Kong." And I got to give you a little background what that means without giving you the whole breadth of it. In a nutshell, Hong Kong is a territory that is separate from China based on an agreement from the United Kingdom back in 97 that they basically said it's going to be separate but part of China, but they will be able to do their own voting, they'll be able to do their own commerce, they even have their own passport. So it's essentially they're their own country, but they're still part of China, and in 2047 they'll come back together. There's a big thing with that too. I'm not going to get into any of that, but essentially Hong Kong is upset because of a bill that's being pushed forth through the Hong Kong Congress, which, by the way, 2/3 of it is really run by China. That's a whole nother story. That's going to allow them to extradite people out of Hong Kong because of a murder that happened in Taiwan. Again, another long story. But the important thing to remember is that 2047 is the year that they become unified, when Hong Kong and China come together. Until then, Hong Kong is its own separate entity. Okay? So the people in Hong Kong are upset because they feel that China is encroaching on their freedoms and they're lashing out. They want this bill, which is right now is suspended. They want it killed completely. And that's where we are now. And so they're protesting because they feel they're being cheated. And China, according to them, and really in truth, is incurring on their rights prior to the 2047 turnover. Okay, anyway, that's the whole deal. So we have Daryl Morey. He is basically standing in unison with Hong Kong because they are a capitalistic free society against a communist China, which has tremendous human rights violations, which is what we would talk about in a little bit later. So that's the nutshell there. And so getting into James Harden. So James Harden is a player on the Houston Rockets, a very good player, excellent player, right? And so he basically came in defense of his GM, but then he got slammed. And China essentially right now they're really threatening the NBA with all kinds of sanctions and so forth because they're upset. They're upset. They feel like they're aggrieved. And again, that's a whole nother video. I don't have time for that. But let me just say this. Spoiler alert. They're not being aggrieved. They're incurring into Hong Kong where they shouldn't be there. And that's the thing. So let's show this video right now of Harden, his apology. I have it queued up here. And let me see if I can get this going.
Usually we go there, once or twice a year. They show us the most important love. So, we appreciate that as a fan base, and we love everything, they're about, and we appreciate the support that they give us individually and as an organization. So, we love you.
So that's the video there of Jason Harden apologizing essentially sucking up to China. I mean, that's good and dandy, but I want you to hear this particular interview with Jason Whitlock. He's on Tucker, Fox News, and Jason is the host of Speak Your Mind. It's a talk show, sports talk show on FS1. You got to check this thing out. I'm going to play it and I'm going to pause it as I feel I need to, because I want to talk over some of this because they really hit on some serious nuggets that I didn't think I'd ever see, well, at least not in the last few years under Trump. This type of dialogue on air from a ESPN type outlet. Okay, so let's check this out. I'm gonna cue this up and let's just let it play and let's talk over it.
Jason Whitlock is the host of Speak for Yourself on Fox Sports 1, and he joins us tonight. So, Jason, this seems inexcusable behavior from the NBA. What's your view of it?
Well, I think the cultural impact that China's influence over a great sport, a great American sport like basketball, is just now being exposed, and just how dependent the NBA is on the Chinese economy and Chinese money to put on the appearance of how great the league is doing. Without the Chinese money and without, because you really have to understand the shoe companies, Nike, Adidas, they run American basketball from the high school level all the way to the pros, and the shoe companies are dependent on the China market. And that's where all of this is coming from. You see NBA players constantly over the summer during their offseason running to China to do the bidding of their shoe companies and to sell their shoes in the China market. And so the NBA is really being exposed as not nearly as much of American business as it is a global business, with China perhaps having more influence over it than even America.
So check that out. Okay, so let's break this thing down. So Jason Whitlock basically just said now that these players are basically at a young age, he gets into this a little bit later, they're being coerced and manipulated to support these shoes like Nike and so forth, who are basically manufactured in China. And because of our dependency on manufacturing out of China, these companies, you can't speak out against China because there's so much invested into that, and that money is coming into the NBA. And so that's an angle that I hadn't heard at all. And I'm glad you brought this up because some people were coming at it from different angles, but this is a one that I hadn't heard, that it shows the hypocrisy so much from people like Coach Kerr of the Golden State Warriors and Popovich of the San Antonio Spurs, and how just the NBA and this whole Colin Kaepernick Nike thing, how it just kind of turns it on its head and exposes everything. So let's continue on. Let's continue on with this right here.
Which is shocking, given that, of course, and it's shocking because I don't think most people know that,
No.
but also shocking given that the NBA was, of course, incubated in this country, wouldn't have been possible in any other. Basketball was invented in Springfield, Massachusetts, in a YMCA. It's the most American of all sports. And I don't know that there's any basketball arena that wasn't subsidized by American taxpayers. So, like, how could they possibly take this position?
Well, Tucker, the cultural impact of this, and what a great teachable moment it is for most American citizens. When people start talking about being a global citizen, I don't think people really understand what that means for American culture. And I think for a lot of the everyday, typical American sports fan, this is an educational experience. This is what people have been talking about. We can't let our corporations, our country being totally driven by China because it's driving our culture. These basketball players, LeBron James Harden actually apologized on behalf of Daryl Morey to the Chinese government. We're apologizing to a communist government, and then we have athletes here and coaches like Steve Kerr and Greg Popovich that rail against our government.
Hold on, I gotta stop there. This is where it gets good. Look, so he's saying, look, so you guys are gonna say, you're gonna get mad at our country, you're gonna get mad at Trump, and for someone like Trump, who for the longest time has been talking about the trade imbalances of various countries all over the world, taking advantage of this country year in and year out, and how we just take it and take it and take it. And from a political standpoint, that may be just something what, like he said, the casual person, the casual sports person who just goes to the game, tailgate on Sunday, Friday night, watches, pay-per-view or whatever they're doing. They're just consuming entertainment, sports media. They don't know anything about this. They hear trade imbalances, they hear China, whatever. They don't know anything about that. But when this comes out here, where the NBA is being impacted in such a way that could affect the league, now they're seeing it firsthand. And like you said, this is a teachable experience that people can learn that are being affected by their lifestyle. That for now, their lifestyle is being affected. And now politics becomes personal now. And so I hope people can make the connection with what Trump was talking about in terms of China taking us to the cleaners. And they're doing it in many, many ways. They're doing it in intellectual property. They're doing it in the military. They're doing it with trade imbalances. They're doing it with inflating their incomes, inflating their dollar to hurt our economy, right? And so that's something that we need to have guts to stand up to. And this president has been able to do that, but it hasn't been able to get across to the average person on the street because they don't have anything tangible to point to of how it really affects them. So let's move on. Let's start this thing up again.
We're the bad guys in the minds of these NBA players and coaches and their little parade of being so woke. All of it to me is at the behest of the shoe companies. They're doing the bidding of the shoe companies and protecting China and demonizing us and our culture and dramatically changing our culture because these athletes are young. And I'm not giving them an excuse, but they're young.
Right.
Many of them didn't go to college or only spent a year or two in college. They don't understand how they're being used and played to promote a communist, a Marxist agenda. They have no idea that their actions and a lot of the things they're promoting, this victim mentality and all the identity politics and, everything in America is racist, all of that. It's all of a scam by the shoe companies. Look how socially aware we are. Look how we fight against injustice. No, you're actually doing a marketing ploy to pretend you have a social conscience, and you're actually doing the bidding of the communist regime in China.
Yeah, maybe the single most racist government in the world. It's literally.
Okay, let's unpack that right there. He said a mouthful there. I want to talk about this. I took some notes here. And so he basically started out by saying that because of this whole thing here, when you have Popovich and you have Kerr, the coach from Golden State, when he says that America is like the bad guys, he's saying that what you're doing is you're demonizing America while propping up a communist government, okay? And he says not only that, but it's changing our culture. Our culture is being changed. And that these players, even though they're young, he's not going to make an excuse for them, but yet they're young and yet they don't understand that how they are being used as pawns, that's my terminology, to be used for a Marxist regime. And how that this whole thing with identity politics and victimization, I'm a victim, so forth, this victim mentality, identity politics, and how all of that is just a marketing ploy for these communist countries, in this case China, at the bidding of the shoe companies. Now, I tell you right now, I don't know if this guy's going to keep his job or not, but this kind of awareness, even for me, is startling and it's exciting to hear and it's refreshing to hear, which is why I'm excited to do this video. And so, yeah, it goes on. He continues on. I'm going to play it on. Let's see if we can get through this.
Literally an ethno-state, and here's the socially conscious NBA stuff. Very quick, it's a little shocking to me that Kerr, of all people, who never hesitates to give his opinion, is often lauded for it, can't manage to say that he takes Hong Kong's side?
Tucker, these guys can rail against our government, our president, and be applauded for it. they don't have the courage to speak out against a communist government, all kinds of human rights violations. It's the epitome of hypocrisy and cowardice.
It really is. And thank you for putting it in context with the shoe companies. I think that's the most interesting thing I've heard in a long time. Jason Whitlock, good to see you tonight.
All right, so that's that clip. I'm going to go over that. I'm just unpack that a little bit. So I'm going to go to this. All right, so yes, let's unpack that, and we're going to wrap this video up. So in that particular segment, he basically said that Steve Kerr and Popovich, these coaches, they rail against the United States. They don't have the courage to go after a communist regime. And that is really the end of it. And they can have no, this is my opinion here, they can have no opinion or no comment on this because the hypocrisy is plentiful. China is a huge human rights violator. And in the video I did before, I was actually reading off a quote from the Chinese ambassador talking about, I'm paraphrasing here, basically, oh, how we're so offended and how the damage goes so deep and blah, 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 and how this and that, and how we think that this guy, I forget his name right now. Oh, here it is. Daryl Morey, how he may be a good guy, and I'm sure all this stuff, and how, but, you know, the scars just won't heal. I mean, just all this. Are you serious? I was like, I read this, like, do you think that people believe this? I mean, come on. This is something that is really, 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 I mean, it's insane. And that's one of the reasons why this channel is here, is just to expose this stuff. You can make your own determination for yourself. I'm seeing it like this. I see what China's doing. It's been told by many, many people. And all of a sudden, when you have a president that's trying to do something about it, it becomes a problem. Bernie Sanders has said this for years about this. And up until this president, it became a problem. And so, and the NBA themselves have put themselves in a situation that I just, you know, that it just baffles me. Now, I could go back to this Real Clear Politics article, but I'm not going to do that. This video pretty much covers all that. I'm going to do another video on this, I'm sure, in the near future as things change. Right now, where it stands, I believe China has been threatening to pull out of various advertisers and so forth. And last I checked, that they are actually doing that. I don't know if this is a bluff or not. I don't know if China wants to do that. But to me, I had thought initially that the NBA was strong enough to handle a Chinese embargo, more or less. But that might not be the case. Because some of the articles that I'm reading, China is really in bed with the NBA and vice versa. And how the NBA bottom line is predicated a lot on the Chinese market. And I think it's by a substantial amount. Because if you see the reaction that the NBA has done on this subject, it is, I mean, it makes your head spin, okay? And so I'm glad that Jason Whitlock did this. He had a good, strong stance on Colin Kaepernick, just a pragmatic, common sense stance. And I thought he was awesome. So I'll start following him. But this video here is fantastic. I hope he can keep his job. But yeah, so kudos to him. And I'm going to wrap this video up. But if you guys like the content on this channel, where I take culture, TV, and movies, and I filter it right, please hit that like and subscribe button and that bell icon so that you don't miss any future content. And as always, please check out some content that I have right here.